Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 27. I'm Adam.
Andrew.
Patrick.
Ian.
Before we get into the game of the week this week, we have our announcement for our winner on the YouTube subscriber giveaway. Ian?
I'd like to congratulate David Parrott. dparrott0704 is his username. We will be sending you your $20 gift card. Or
it'll be the code from the gift certificate that we purchase online. We'll send it to your YouTube account, do a private message to you.
We'll also list you on our description of the page just to make sure we know that you're the winner that way.
Or if you don't watch anymore, you're going to get a random $20 in your inbox.
But anyways, CoolStuffInc.
2020.
As always, too, before we get in the game, we'd like to invite you over to our website, www.meeplesonmeeples.com, as well as our Facebook page, facebook.com/meeplesonmeeples, where we put our game of the week, all of our videos, that type of stuff. And finally, invite you to subscribe to us over on YouTube, where, again, all of our videos go up, and we try to keep up with news there as well.
Well, this week's game, as we announced, was the DC Comics deck building games. As you can see, we're kind of on a theme right now. And DC Comics deck building game is probably the most simple approach to a deck building game that you can have. Everybody starts with the same deck, which is 7 punch cards and 3 vulnerability cards. Now, the punch cards are worth a +1 power each time you use it, and vulnerabilities are worth actually nothing at all, and it just shows you your weakness that your character has. Now, once you have your deck, you also get to choose or have a special comic superhero dealt to you, and we have a lot of the Justice Leaguers that are available right now: Batman, The Flash, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, Aquaman. And each one of these has a special ability that goes along with them that kind of adds to the theme of a game a little bit. And the gameplay is very simple. From your deck, you draw 5 cards. From those 5 cards, if they have a power, you can use those powers to purchase a location or equipment or a hero or a superpower or defeat a villain. If you have enough power, you can try to go after the supervillain, which is actually the main purpose of the game. There are, in the general game, about 8 supervillains that you fight against. You can add more or less depending on the amount of time and how difficult you want the game. Each supervillain has a first appearance, which means the first time you flip that supervillain over, they attack everybody at the table. And then your goal is to defeat that supervillain by getting enough power that overcomes their point cost, or in this case is 10. And
to get how you get these cards is you add your powers up to go after the number in the gray circle.
Yep,
the
gray circle.
4, you can buy that hero, or that hero. If you have 6, you can buy that superpower.
Yep. And if you have more than that, you can buy multiple cards at once. And your goal is to defeat these supervillains before the deck here runs out. If I don't have enough to defeat the supervillain, I can use my points to buy these cards up. Once I buy them, at the end of my turn, we replenish those. You don't replenish them until your turn is already over. You discard any cards that you have left in your hand. You draw 5 new ones, and it goes on to the next person. Now, the interesting twist about this type of game is not only am I trying to defeat the supervillains, a lot of my cards also slow down my opponents as well in their goals to obtain supervillains' powers and villains. Once the supervillains are all defeated, before this deck runs out, there's still a winner to the game. Each of these cards in the star points here has a certain amount of point values to them. Anywhere from a -1, which is a weakness, sometimes a punishment that you get from enemies, to a 0 to, some of them have 9 and higher points. And the person who has the most points at the end of the game is the overall winner. And basically that is about it. It's a very simple, straightforward deck building game.
Very simple game. Let's start with components. Again, it's like last week with Sentinels of the Multiverse. It is a card game. This is a more traditional card game because all it has is cards. You don't have any tokens in this game whatsoever. Which again gets me kind of back into the Sentinels of the Multiverse argument, is the cards, for being just a card game, are kind of plain. I mean, they're not really high quality. They're not really low quality. They're just kind of middle of the road. How much is this game, speaking of which?
I can't remember actually right now.
$5.
No.
$5. But
we'll have somebody look up on that real quick to see if we can get that to you in a second.
But either way, I feel like the cards could be a higher quality, and that'd be just kind of my first, I guess, gripe with components.
Now, the character cards that you get dealt or that you select, they are a cardboard stock. They're a little bit more durable. That's kind of nice. One thing I like about, and I hear a lot about people bad-mouthing the artwork on these cards. Now, the cards themselves are not the greatest quality, but I actually like the artwork. They actually pulled some artwork directly from the comics themselves. some of them are kind of plain and blah, but some of them are just really nice. The character cards themselves have a lot of detail to them.
I wouldn't say any of the art is bad.
Some of it is very simple, like
okay.
the vulnerabilities. But if you look at like the hero here, Supergirl, that's a pretty neat background.
Yeah.
My question is, what you're saying? Keep saying that this card stock is not that greatest. What is the greatest then? I mean, like, where are you comparing to that?
I think Last Night on Earth is really like a heavy duty. I mean, Stone Age even is nice. It's got kind of the textured cards.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, compared to a playing card, this is about spot on to a
playing card.
It's about
the same. This
I mean, and I can play with a playing card for hours and days.
Evidently,
it'll wear at some point, but it's still going to take a long time.
To give some perspective, though, this is a $40 game. All it is cards, and for about $10 more, you can get something like Stone Age that has a bunch of components, a bunch of really nice cards, a nice board. I mean, I know they're paying for the license, and that's why it's going to cost more. But I feel like they could at least put a little more into it.
Yeah, but on the edge of that though, I do like the artwork, and I think they're not just paying for the name of DC; they are paying for the artwork as well. And I really, unlike what some people say online, I really do like this artwork.
Is somebody creating this artwork for them?
I think they pulled a lot of them from the comics.
Okay, so
some of them might be unique.
I mean, it looks like
maybe the stock images from the.
It looks like the player cards could be for this because they look to be kind of.
Yeah, they're formatted.
And
some of these might be like some of the locations might be designed for this, but I think some of it is stock image.
Sure. Anybody else on components?
That makes it probably.
Andrew hasn't said anything.
It's pretty just blah to me. It really doesn't stand out or do anything special for me.
One thing I'll get into with I guess the components, not just the art on the front, on the back. I actually had to ask what this means. If you look at it, it's got like a C and a shield on it. And it doesn't seem to represent anything with the game. Evidently, it's the symbol for the company.
Yeah, it's if the company they state that any game, any of their card games could be technically played together, so that you can't differentiate it. It wasn't specifically that design was not made for this game.
And like again, back to Sentinels in the Multiverse, that game actually had the card back that was specific to each deck you were playing.
Yeah,
and this is kind of a nice feature.
This is a little different, but also the idea of this is so that you can't tell if it's a superhero or whatnot. It is supposed to blend in a little bit.
Sir. There is no differentiating.
No, not on the back.
So really, if you flip them all over, you'd be lost.
Yeah,
they all.
But that's part of the point. So I don't know what's coming up next. That's kind of. It would be kind of neat if they had the supervillains a different backing, so you could differentiate that. But I can see why you don't want these because if it's in somebody's hand and you had different backings, then it would be.
Easier to tell.
Are these even? Yeah, these are. I mean, even your player card. I mean,
it's pretty bland all the way to the front.
Good branding. Good branding.
Yeah, they branded it really well.
If you don't show it once, show it 900,000 more times.
How about strategy then? Anybody find any strategies that worked really well for them in this game?
To me, it really depended on the character I was playing. Each character has a different strategy behind it.
Yep.
The other Meeple who isn't here, Brian, he goes for the Suicide Squad because they rack up points very quickly if you can pull it off.
And they're a card, if you can buy a bunch of them, they kind of build on each other for points. So
I mean, he had, 4 cards at the end of the
No, 6. He got 36 points off of the thing.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean,
I didn't realize that, but when I first played it, bought a bunch of villains, and I probably actually scored higher just because I didn't even know they actually compounded on each other.
Yeah. I would say any character that you can draw cards is probably a good character. Any character you can... there are a few cards on there that you can actually take any of the equipment. You can take any additional cards, depending on... take any card under 4 value. Things like that. You want those cards as many as you can get.
Don't always just focus on the power, because some of these guys have a lot of power. There's people on here that have 5 power. Those are probably the most powerful characters out there. But if you focus on power, if you draw, you only get 5 cards unless you have a card that allows you to draw more. And if you get 5 cards and 3 of your vulnerabilities come up, you're hosed that round. No matter what power of card you have, you're going to be limited unless you have some extra cards to get you out of that.
There are a few cards in the deck that would allow you to discard cards out of your discard pile.
Destroy cards.
Destroy cards. Take them completely out of the game so that you can't shuffle them back in. That actually helped me the first time we played. Is I destroyed all my vulnerability and a couple weaknesses. I mean,
that really helped you out because then you can replenish your hand and you actually have all 5 that are.
And at the end, I didn't have a bunch of cards that were worth nothing.
Along the same lines of not focusing on the power, toward the end of the game, really pay attention to the number that's in that star because you're going to want to start buying the cards or defeating the villains that are going to get you that higher number to build up your final score at the end of the game. I mean, there might be a guy that has a lot of power, but he's only a 1 star. You may not want to buy him because there's a good chance you're not going to get to play him. So towards the end of the game, you may want to focus on your score rather than future strategy.
I saw that a lot of locations were being left out on the board. I actually thought they were quite handy for me. I mean, I was able to pick another card and then compound the score and then pull from the discard.
The one good location card that's in there is the one you got.
Is that the other one's not?
I had one too, and it didn't really do me any good.
Well, I had the Teen Titans, which the first time I played a hero, after I play it, it allowed me to draw a card. So it really depends. Like this one right here, this is location, it's in pink, and it says when you play your first superpower each of your turn, you draw a card. Now that's only going to help you if you have a lot of superpowers.
Right. So you have to keep that in mind if you're going to use a location.
Yeah.
Right.
Because mine was if you laid down a hero, and I only had like 3.
Yeah, and then that hurts.
And they're kind of an expensive card. They don't get you a lot of points. They're usually a 1, and they're a 5 card. So
the
benefit, really kind of decide if it's going to play well with your deck.
The benefit with the location is once you play it, it stays out, and so you don't have to cycle it to your hand. That's the one thing that you have going for yourself there.
A couple keys from each of their gameplays is the Suicide Squad is obviously it's a nice play too if you can get all of them. The other villain card where you can double your point on, that really helped Andrew on the first game where it doubled everything across the board, and that he was just able to rake in the cards.
I'll put him up top here. This is Parallax, and once you defeat the supervillain, he goes into your deck, so you can use him later on when you play. But his first appearance, each player reveals his hand. When you play him out of your deck, you double your power this turn. So you had 11 power, and then he laid Parallax down, which he went up to 22, and he just took everything basically.
Cleared the board off.
Yeah, he cleared the board in one swoop. So you definitely want to kind of fight for the super villains.
Yeah. I had 4 super villains on that last go around, and I swear, like a stack that was about triple everybody else's, and I still lost to Brian because he did the Suicide Squad. I think that is, as much as I don't want to admit it, I think he did a very good job.
Yeah, that's it. We all look for the Suicide Squad because you don't have a real
great on their own.
The Suicide Squad power in the game.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what they're saying is this was Ian's, and this was Brian's. And
he creamed me.
Brian.
Yeah, and
by 2. And
it's during gameplay you look over them because their power is very weak during gameplay, but the overall power at the end of the game is really, really impressive.
How about likes and dislikes on the game? Anything that really stood out to you one way or the other?
I liked the ease of the play. Yep. And I mean, it didn't take us very long to jump into it and play. I like the ease of the play. Even though the artwork isn't fantastic, I do like comic books. I like comic book heroes. I love DC comics. And the visuals, even though people complain about it, I kind of liked most of the cards, what they looked like.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I played 2 different characters tonight, and one of mine, unless I got tons of equipment, which is Batman, and then the chance that it actually comes up in your hand is very slim. So his power really didn't do a whole lot for me. Plus, the point that you're putting villains into your hand and you're playing with villains, it just kind of confused me a little bit. In terms of being a good guy, bad guy game, it just kind of turned into a generalized card game.
Kind of got it's got a weird story that doesn't play like you'd think for a superhero game.
Yeah,
right. It's
kind of people put different stories to it. Some of them say you're battling against other people who are not really the Justice League. I mean, people have made up stories. So
people are making up stories.
Kind of scenarios just to make it work.
What is the manufacturer's story?
It doesn't really literally say in there.
So no story.
Yeah, it just says.
So it's $40 for a pretty set of cards and no story.
Well, but the gameplay you're playing for the gameplay, but yeah.
Basically, you're paying for art, so this could be anything. They could have just put down whatever they wanted, and not necessarily been comic book, because the game would play the same.
I'm going to jump right off that. I played as Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and by about my 3rd time through, I could really care less who my hero was. It didn't matter. It wasn't like It wasn't again like Sentinels of the Multiverse where I was a superhero. It was I have Wonder Woman, I have Aquaman, and
whatever else is in your hand.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The character doesn't matter.
It was just the traits you were working with.
Exactly.
It wasn't the character. Some of the traits to the character did match.
Yeah, it
matched their character itself a little bit to a point. I don't know what Aquaman was, but it definitely wasn't I can breathe in the water.
He did not. Talk
to fish.
I didn't draw a single fish card.
So no. So I mean, there really wasn't anything to that point, but I mean, some of them did carry their.
I also didn't get the invisible plane.
Yeah.
There's the lasso. There's not one of those cards.
And it was really weird that there was a couple Batmobiles. I just didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the movie.
Cards.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies though with the Batmobile in it.
No, all the cards are the same.
Yeah, they look the same. Yeah, but the theory was yeah.
How about anything else anybody particularly liked or disliked about the game?
Well, that's
I guess we can jump to our reviews then. It's a scale of I guess 1 to 10, 10 being great, 5 being okay, 1 being don't buy the game. Andrew.
I'm going to go with a 6. The comic book theme didn't really come through in the game for me. Gameplay was alright. I mean, it played fine. It played quickly. I didn't really have any huge issues with the rules, things like that. But the theme of the game and actually tying into how it played just didn't do it for me, so I'm going to give it a 6.
I'm going to actually go... I'm going to go a 6.5. A little bit higher than Andrew. I'm going to throw off your averages down there. And again, it's the same reasons. The theme really doesn't come through all that well. Like we said, it really doesn't matter who you're playing as. While it's fun and it does play very, very quickly, part of what I'm taking into account here is learning that it is a $40 game. Mm-hmm. And I think viewers out there should know that for a $40 game, it's just kind of a recommendation. Maybe buy it. I probably wouldn't. But for what you get, even though, like I said, it was fun, I don't think it's worth $40.
Myself, I will disclaim this right away because mine will be a little skewed, and I totally understand it. But the reason for that is I love superheroes, and so that is going to skew. And I'll just throw it out there. That is going to skew my number a little bit. I love DC heroes. If you get the right combo of cards, you do feel like you're playing your character. I agree. You're not, Superman isn't always getting the superpowers. No. He sometimes has equipment, which doesn't seem to fit. But I do like the color. I think it's a fun game. I think it is less complicated than a lot of deck builders out there, which I think is fun because you can just throw this down and learn in a couple minutes and you're playing.
What's the age range on this?
Age is 15 and up, but my children play it. I have a 9 and 10-year-old who play this.
Say 10?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing we could figure out for that is there's a couple cards where there's blood.
Yeah, there's a lot of reading.
There's a lot of reading. Yep. But I have an 8 or a 9 and 10-year-old who play this. They like this game. And that's another thing. Since it is an easy deck building game, my kids picked it up very easy, and it's a fun game to play. And the fact that we are all superhero and comic book geeks there, I actually give it an 8. And again, that's way set off, and that's because of I understand it's totally because of my comic book geekiness.
I'm going to do this. I would put this game at a 7. It misses on theme, on point. It's hard orientation when you're playing the game with 5 people sitting around a table. I don't like. I mean, I didn't like having to read it upside down, and having troubles with that. But it was fun. I mean, just general playability, pretty easy. It's easy read. It doesn't really conflict with a lot of things. It wasn't hard to pick up. It was just generally fun game. I'm kind of spot in whether or not I'd buy it, but I don't think I'd ever turn it down if it came to the table. I mean, I'd probably even suggest to play it if it was in somebody's, on the wall. I'm like, I want to play that game. That was fun.
Kind of have a weird question. Is this a game, do they have any expansions planned?
Not yet. From what I've heard, they've talked about expansions about it, more character cards, things like that. I looked up on Board Game Geek the other day. I haven't found any statements that they're definitely doing it yet, but there is room that they could definitely expand from it. And I guess it's sold pretty well too, so I don't think there's anything inhibiting that way either.
All right, well that's our review of the DC Comics deck building game. Next week we're doing
Marvel Legends.
So check us out then.